They want your reaction. That's how they win. By pulling you into chaos, making you defend yourself, argue, flinch. But here's the truth. The strongest one in the room is never the loudest. It's the one who doesn't blink, the one who destroys every accusation, every insult, without saying a word. In a world ruled by provocation, silence is not weakness, it's domination. And when you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. In today's video, we'll break down the Machiavellian and Stoic strategy that lets you dismantle anyone's logic, not through argument, but through calm. You'll learn how to turn detachment into power, how to use silence like a blade, and how to become emotionally untouchable in a world built to provoke you. If you're ready to reclaim your peace and control the game without ever raising your voice, like this video and subscribe. Let's begin.
Number 1.
The world is a psychological battlefield. We live in an era where conflict wears a smile, where attacks come not through fists, but through silence, timing, and suggestion. In today's world, nothing is louder than a pause, and nothing more piercing than a glance withheld. The real war now is invisible. It's psychological, and most people are fighting battles they can't even see, losing them in group chats, in meetings, in comments that look harmless on the surface, but were designed to shake their foundation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. But in this age, everything is designed to pull you in. Social media doesn't care if you're right. It only cares if you're emotional. That's what keeps you scrolling. That's what keeps you reactive. Every ping is a trap. Every vague message, every non-response, every subtle dig. It's all bait to pull you away from your center and into someone else's game." This is how people seize power without ever raising their voice. They provoke, you react. Then they say, "Look how sensitive you are." But they set the trap. And if you don't understand that you're in a psychological battlefield, you'll walk right into it, again and again. So you must learn to see the game. Someone accidentally leaves you out of a conversation. A friend offers praise with a poisoned edge. A coworker asks a loaded question in front of the team. On the surface, it's nothing. But underneath, it's war. A quiet, invisible war that targets your emotional stability. And the moment you respond, when you try to explain, to correct, to defend, you've given them exactly what they wanted. Control over your emotional state. Epictetus said it best. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That truth is both uncomfortable and liberating, because if your reaction is part of the trap, then your restraint is the way out. Every time you hold your tongue, every time you keep your center, you pull power back into your own hands. Your silence becomes a kind of shield, one they cannot pierce because it doesn't give them anything to grab onto. Consider Viktor Frankl, a man imprisoned in conditions beyond imagination. Yet he discovered that between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space is the power to choose. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That space is your refuge. It is where Stoicism lives. It is the terrain no one can touch, unless you abandon it. But why do we abandon it? Because the world whispers, "Say something." It nudges you to prove yourself. It dares you to take the bait. Especially with people close to you, family, old friends, colleagues, the ones who know exactly how to rattle you. The cousin who always downplays your achievements. The parent who praises you just enough to keep you needing more. The manager who pushes your buttons in meetings just to feel powerful. These aren't harmless personalities. They're patterns. And if you don't master yourself, you'll dance to their rhythm every time. Seneca once said, A wise man is indifferent to what he cannot control. This is not indifference out of apathy. It is indifference born of clarity. You begin to understand that not every insult needs a response. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every audience deserves your performance. Sometimes silence is not retreat, it's ascension. You see, manipulators don't fear your anger. They expect it. They're prepared for it. What unsettles them is your calm, your refusal to participate, your presence that says, I see the game, and I choose not to play. That's not weakness, that's power, that's strategy, that's stoicism. So what happens when you stop reacting? The power dynamics shift. The person who once rattled you begins to falter. They can't find the buttons anymore. The silence becomes uncomfortable. For them and your stillness, it becomes their mirror. They begin to see themselves clearly and without distraction. That's the most unnerving thing of all. In this battlefield, the Stoic doesn't yell, he watches, he doesn't react, he remembers. That every reaction is a transaction, and he's no longer willing to sell his peace for the illusion of control. He knows that attention is currency, and he spends it with intention. So the next time someone sends that passive-aggressive message, leaves you unread, or makes a public dig masked as a joke, pause, don't reply, don't chase, don't defend. Let them wonder why they can't get to you. Let them sit with their own noise. Because that silence, that composure, that is the moment you win. That is the moment you stop being a participant and become the architect of your own calm. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to explain your worth. You only need to master the one thing no one can take from you, your response. That's how you win wars that others never even see.
Number 2.
The power of calm and the weakness of reaction. We've been lied to about what strength really is. We've been sold the illusion that power must be loud, assertive, confrontational, emotionally explosive. But the ancient Stoics knew a deeper, quieter truth. True power is calm. True power is the ability to stay centered while the world spins around you. When you hold that calm, you become unreadable. And in a world driven by provocation, that makes you dangerous. Modern culture worships the reactive. We are trained to speak back, clap back, fire off, explain, argue. But with every emotional response, something bleeds out of you. Your energy, your peace, your clarity, and worst of all, your control. Because every reaction signals something. It reveals your buttons, your wounds, your insecurities. And when someone knows where your buttons are, they don't need strength to move you. They just need to press. Seneca said it plainly. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. But the Stoic proves himself not by reacting to adversity, but by refusing to let it shape him. When you stay calm in the face of offense, you're not weak, you're unshakable. Calm is in silence from fear, it's restraint from strength. Picture this, a man insults you in front of others. You fire back. Now it's a shouting match. No one looks strong, both of you look rattled. But now imagine you say nothing. You let the insult fall to the ground like a stone. The crowd shifts. Now all eyes are on him because you didn't flinch. That pause, the silence, it creates a discomfort that no comeback ever could. He expected fuel, he got stillness, and in that stillness, his power collapses. This is the lesson. Calmness is not inaction, it's intelligent inaction. It is strategy. It is a posture that says, I don't play by your rules. Steve Jobs understood this well. Known for intensity, yes, but his genius was in his composure. When executives pushed for things he didn't believe in, he would often just sit, wait, breathe, and finally say, no drama, just certainty. And when he spoke, the room adjusted to him. The Stoics weren't interested in performance. They were interested in power, and power to them began with self-rule. Epictetus said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." The moment you react, you signal that someone outside of you controls what's inside of you. And the one thing a Stoic never surrenders is his inner domain. Calm shifts power. It confuses those who rely on drama. Why? Because they expect escalation. When you give them nothing, they are left to wrestle with their own noise. Your composure becomes their confrontation. They project, they provoke, they spiral, and all the while you remain still. That stillness, that's your protection. But more than that, it's your offense. It disrupts their script. People often think calmness is weak, that not responding makes you look like a coward. But that's only true in a world addicted to ego. Marcus Aurelius said, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" It's not what was said to you that ruins your day. It's what you let it turn you into. You raise your voice, you react, you explain yourself. And for what? To feed a fire that burns your peace. Stoicism teaches that every moment of anger is a loss of clarity, and clarity is what power depends on. So when someone throws shade, or questions your worth, or tries to pull you into their chaos, you don't match it, you observe it, you maintain your composure, not because you don't feel, but because you refuse to let their chaos define your response. Take Oprah Winfrey. In countless interviews, she's been baited, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly. But what makes her presence magnetic is not just her wisdom, it's her restraint. She listens, she pauses, she waits, and when she speaks, it cuts deeper than any raised voice ever could. That's not just emotional intelligence, it's strategic control. So what does calm look like in practice? It's holding eye contact while staying silent. It's saying, you're entitled to your opinion. And moving on, it's removing yourself from a toxic conversation without fanfare. These aren't signs of indifference. They're signs that you've chosen dignity over drama. And in a world that thrives on emotional leakage, your restraint becomes your rebellion. The reactive man is easy to map, easy to provoke, easy to control. But the calm man, he's unreadable, he's untouchable, and most importantly, he's free. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, ask, what do they want me to feed? Is this a trap dressed as a conversation? What do I lose if I respond from the ego instead of the essence? You don't need to defend yourself to someone who wants to misunderstand you. You don't need to prove anything to someone who feeds on your reaction, and you certainly don't need to abandon your calm just to win a moment that means nothing in the long run. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It is the discipline of emotional mastery. And when you own that, you no longer seek control because you already have it. That's what separates the Stoic from the crowd. That's what separates you from the man still explaining himself to people who never respected him in the first place.
Number 3.
Silence as a strategic weapon. Silence is not passivity, it is presence. It is not the absence of power. It is its refinement. In a world where everyone is talking, where every opinion becomes a performance, silence cuts through the noise like a blade. The man who doesn't need to speak has already won half the battle, because his restraint creates a tension that words cannot touch. Most people fear silence. They see it as weakness, as retreat, as indecision. But the Stoic sees it differently. He sees silence as leverage, as clarity, as control. While others scramble to be seen and heard, the Stoic holds the line. He knows that when you don't react, you create a space. And in that space, people show who they truly are. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's what silence demands. It demands that you surrender your ego's need to explain itself, that you let people misjudge you and stay calm anyway, Because silence is not about how you appear, it's about what you protect. Look at Keanu Reeves. He speaks little, offers no defense, shares no personal drama, and yet his presence is magnetic. Why? Because silence wrapped in purpose becomes intrigue. It forces people to lean in, to wonder, to question, and that uncertainty, deliberately created, holds more psychological power than the loudest rebuttal. Now compare that to someone who argues every accusation, corrects every narrative, and defends every decision. That's not strength. That's emotional exposure. Marcus Aurelius warned us. The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And when you argue to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you, you forfeit your peace to prove a point. Silence, on the other hand, creates asymmetry. You say nothing, and suddenly they're saying too much. They escalate, they repeat themselves, they grow uncomfortable. Why? Because your stillness becomes a mirror. And when someone expects chaos and receives calm, their own chaos echoes louder. You didn't have to win the argument. You changed the dynamic entirely. But silence doesn't just dismantle. It reveals. When you stop engaging, you see patterns. Who only calls when they need something? Who becomes distant when you don't react? Who escalates when you set boundaries? Silence filters out the unstable without a single confrontation. It exposes what performance often conceals. It shows you who respects your energy and who only needed your reaction. Seneca once said, "Speech is the mirror of the soul," but silence reveals character at an even deeper level. It says, "I'm not here to perform." It says, "Your games don't interest me." It says, "My energy is too expensive for this." In your silence, you force others to carry the weight of their own behavior. Even in business, silence can dominate. Elon Musk, for instance, is known for using silence to his advantage in negotiations. He listens more than he speaks. He gives others space to talk themselves into a corner. And when he does speak, it's measured, minimal, intentional. That economy of speech forces others to adjust to his tempo, not the other way around. Silence also protects. It keeps you from reacting too soon, from saying something you'll regret, from leaking emotional energy into unworthy situations. How many relationships have been wounded by one careless sentence? How many reputations cracked by one reactive outburst? The Stoic doesn't run from discomfort. He holds it, breathes through it, and only speaks when the speaking aligns with his values, not his impulses. In practical terms, silence is a strategy with three sharp edges. First, it disarms. Without your reaction, provocateurs lose their fuel. Second, it reveals. People expose their agendas when you don't respond. Third, it reclaims control. When you don't speak, you stay in your frame. You choose your ground, and in choosing your ground, you refuse to fight on theirs. In relationships, this is vital. When you stop over-explaining, you realize how many people were only staying because they fed on your reactivity. Pull back, go silent, watch who panics, watch who distances, and then ask, did they value me or just my attention? But silence requires inner grounding. It's not the silence of avoidance. It's the silence of alignment. You remain quiet not because you're unsure, but because you're certain. Certain that the moment does not deserve your voice, certain that the truth will stand without your defense, certain that your calm is more valuable than your need to be right. This is what separates the Stoic from the average man. The average man speaks to feel in control. The Stoic remains quiet because he is in control. His silence is not submission. It is a message, a posture, a filter, and most importantly, a weapon. So next time someone tries to bait you through sarcasm, gossip, manipulation, or provocation, don't rush to reply. Let your silence sit like a stone in the middle of the conversation. Let them wrestle with the stillness. Let their discomfort reveal the shallowness of their tactic. And in that moment realize, you've already won, not by overpowering, but by outlasting. Because in a world where everyone is fighting to be heard, the one who listens becomes impossible to ignore.
Number 4.
Detachment and emotional sovereignty. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to feel everything without being ruled by anything. In a world that feeds on emotional reactions, detachment is not indifference. It is discipline. It is the quiet power of holding your center while the world pulls in every direction. And this is what the Stoics called emotional sovereignty. The ability to govern your internal world, no matter how chaotic the external one becomes. Most people don't realize how easily they're pulled. A single comment ruins their day. A passive-aggressive remark shifts their entire mood. One unexpected message and they spiral. This is not emotional awareness, it's emotional slavery. Because when you hand your piece to every circumstance, you become a puppet. And the one holding the strings doesn't even need to try hard. Detachment is the practice of cutting those strings, one by one. Not so that you stop caring, but so that you start choosing, so that you stop leaking your energy into every conflict, every insult, every distraction. It means being able to observe your emotions without being hijacked by them to say, yes, I feel this, but I don't owe this feeling a reaction. That's sovereignty. That's power. Epictetus taught, no man is free who is not master of himself. And mastery begins when you stop confusing reactivity with depth. Just because you feel something strongly doesn't mean it deserves your action. Just because someone wrongs you doesn't mean you must respond. Your detachment is not coldness, it is protection. It is the recognition that not everything deserves access to your nervous system. Look at someone like Ryan Holiday, a modern Stoic author who operates in a fast-paced, emotionally charged digital world, yet he chooses to respond rather than react. He speaks of taking the space between stimulus and response seriously. That space is everything. It's the difference between acting from your values or your wounds, between living with direction or being constantly yanked by the next emotional spike. People will test your detachment. They'll call it cold. They'll call it distant. But what they're really saying is, why can't I control you anymore? When you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. And when you stop being predictable, you stop being controllable. That unsettles those who relied on your emotional availability to maintain power over you. Now, this does not mean you turn to numbness. The Stoic is not a stone. He is fully alive. But he doesn't let the winds of others uproot him. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That realization is the heart of emotional sovereignty. It's knowing. I can feel pain without becoming pain. I can witness disrespect without becoming vengeful. I can see the storm and remain still. This detachment also brings clarity. When you are no longer attached to outcomes, you begin to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. You stop performing. You stop negotiating your worth. You become rooted in reality instead of fantasy. And from that clarity, all wise decisions flow. But let's be honest, detachment is not easy. It will cost you. You'll lose people who benefited from your emotional volatility. You'll grieve illusions that once felt like home. But in return, you'll gain something far greater. Peace, stability, direction, the ability to walk into any room and not need anything from anyone. This was the path of Zeno, the founder of Stoicism. After losing his fortune in a shipwreck, he didn't collapse. He didn't blame fate. He shifted. He studied philosophy. He started again, with less attachment and more alignment. His loss didn't destroy him. It redirected him toward his inner fortress. So how do you practice emotional sovereignty today? You start with the pause. Someone says something cruel? Pause, you get bad news? Pause, you feel the urge to lash out? Pause, that pause is sacred. It interrupts the chain of reactivity and gives your higher self time to enter the room. In that pause, you ask, does this deserve my energy? What's the most powerful response here? Sometimes the answer is silence. Sometimes it's departure, and sometimes it's compassion, but chosen, not coerced. Second, you anchor to your principles, not your feelings. Feelings fluctuate, principles endure. When your response is based on what you believe instead of what you feel, you become rooted, and rooted people don't sway with every breeze. Third, you reduce your emotional dependencies. Stop seeking closure from those who gave you confusion. Stop expecting truth from liars. Stop waiting for apologies that will never come. The moment you release these attachments is the moment you reclaim your strength. You stop waiting to heal and start becoming whole on your own terms. Finally, practice being misunderstood. Let people think what they want. You're not here to be decoded. You're here to be aligned. The Stoic doesn't trade his peace for public approval. He walks his path quietly. And that quietness, that's where the real revolution happens. Because the man who can govern his emotions governs his world. And no matter how loud the chaos gets outside, he never lets it enter the temple of his mind.
Number 5.
The cost and reward of becoming unshakable. Every transformation demands a price. Becoming emotionally unshakable, no longer reacting out of impulse or the desire for approval, is no exception. The modern world rewards clarity with respect, but punishes detachment with misunderstanding. When you stop being emotionally available for chaos, people say you've changed, and they're right, you have. But what they won't say is that they can no longer use your emotions to manipulate your decisions. Emotional independence will cost you comfort. It may cost you relationships. It will dismantle the illusion of closeness with those who only bonded through your instability. You begin to see that many connections weren't built on respect, but access. When you cut the line of reactivity, you take away the rope others were pulling to control your internal world. And they feel that loss, not because they love you, but because they lost power over you. That is why few pursue this path. It takes courage to be misunderstood, discipline to walk forward in silence, and clarity to know that being misread is not your burden to fix. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." The unshakable man lives by this principle. He no longer explains himself to the noise. He honors the inner voice over the external clamor. The cost is undeniable, but so is the reward. When you stop reacting, your energy becomes concentrated. People feel the boundary in your stillness. You don't have to defend yourself with words. Your detachment becomes a mirror, reflecting the chaos of others back to them. You unsettle those who can no longer read or predict you, and unpredictability to manipulators is terrifying. You no longer play their game. This rare presence, this quiet power, cannot be faked. It must be built moment by moment. Jocko Willink is a prime example. While known for his physical discipline, what truly sets him apart is his calm under fire. In emotionally charged moments, he doesn't lash out. He listens, he processes, he responds without frenzy. That is emotional sovereignty in action, a steady hand in a room of shaking voices. But peace makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefited from your unrest. The moment you stop feeding emotional codependency, people will call you cold, distant, arrogant. What they mean is, you stopped letting me control you, and their confusion is proof that your boundary is working. The Stoics never sought popularity, they sought peace. Seneca wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy." Expecting others to validate your transformation, will always lead to disappointment. The real strength lies in continuing anyway, in building your temple of calm, brick by brick, while the world throws stones of judgment. You let the stones fall and keep building. Over time, your behavior changes. You share less, you explain less, you correct people less. Not out of apathy, but wisdom. You understand that maturity means choosing alignment over approval, that not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your story, or your truth. The more grounded you are, the more discerning you become, not out of superiority, but out of self-respect. You also learn how few things deserve your energy. Someone insults you, you let it pass. A message tries to provoke you, you delete it. A conversation spirals into drama, you step back because you've seen what peace feels like, and you won't trade it for anything that small. Peace is no longer a luxury, it's your standard. And what transforms most is not what you tolerate, but how you move. You go from reacting to creating. You create distance. You create space before speaking. You create intention before acting. You become a curator of your own energy, and this curation changes everything. The shift is internal first. A man who once sought to prove his worth now protects it. A man who once responded to every critic now walks in silence. A man who once felt guilty for saying no now does so without explanation. That's the reward, a freedom that doesn't need to be flaunted to be felt. This level of restraint is not natural, it's trained, forged in moments when the easier choice would be rage or retaliation or performance. But the unshakable man chooses stillness because he knows that the strongest room is not the one where he's loudest, but the one where he's least disturbed. What makes this mindset so transformative is not that it shelters you from life's chaos, but that it reshapes your relationship with it. You stop trying to control others and start mastering yourself. You stop obsessing over outcomes and start practicing clarity in the present moment. And that clarity becomes your advantage. And the ultimate reward? It's this. When your inner world is still, the outer world loses its grip. You are no longer reactive. You are self-directed. You become the eye of the storm, not tossed by winds, not pulled by waves, but steady, centered, unmoved. Not driven by applause, not distracted by criticism, not controlled by chaos. Just governed by something deeper, by your own calm. The rarest currency in today's world is peace, and the highest reward for the man who chooses mastery over reactivity is that peace becomes his constant companion, earned, unshakable, yours. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control others, to win arguments, to be seen as right. But the Stoic doesn't chase any of that. He chases peace. He builds it, not through dominance, but through discipline. Not by shouting, but by walking away. Because when you no longer need the last word, you've already won. The moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your energy. And the more you protect that energy, the more powerful your presence becomes. That's the path of the unshakable. That's how you destroy someone's logic without ever raising your voice. If this message struck something deep inside you, then you're exactly who this channel was made for. Like the video, subscribe, share this with someone who's tired of the noise, because the world doesn't need more voices, it needs more anchors. Stay grounded, stay silent, stay sovereign. This is James the Stoic. Until next time.